you brought up that I want to touch on is your meal planning. So, you're in a new place. You don't necessarily know the restaurants. What should you be thinking about for what you're going to eat the whole day before the race, 2 days before the race? What's your best advice for that?
Well, Trevor knows that I am like the snack queen. So I like never travel without food. I've got like electrolytes to be taking the day before the race because, travel can be dehydrating and you don't want to go into a race dehydrated. So make sure you've got your electrolytes in your water, you're hydrating well. And then I usually carry some sort of like protein bar or energy bar with me and some kind of good protein source. So depending on where you're going, if you're not traveling internationally, you can bring like fruit sometimes that like an apple or something that stands up well. Nuts, raw nuts are great. Just having something with you so that you don't get hangry because that's a big problem for me. And then you can do your research as far as, especially dinner the night before a race. Kind of the cardinal rule is you don't want to do anything new. So, don't go someplace where it's some cuisine you've never had before, or it's going to be super spicy, or you're just kind of thinking like, well, I had that one bad experience, but it'll be okay this time. Like, save any experimental, like fun, wild food experiences for after the race, preferably. And just go with something super simple that is not going to impact your digestion in a bad way. And I always like to tell people to eat dinner early the night before a race. Because you just want to have time for that to digest through your system. So you can, go to bed early, I hope, and get a good night's sleep. And you will be waking up earlier anyway. So, should have time to go through your system. But those are kind of my tips. Do something that's familiar.
Yeah. Absolutely. My go-to meal before a marathon, if I'm traveling, even if I'm not traveling, is I'll take a couple of raw potatoes and put those in my suitcase. Nice. And I will microwave them in the hotel and then put ketchup on it. And I know that sounds weird and I know that sounds strange, but like the super carbo load of the potatoes, so microwave potatoes is like my pre-race meal. My bigger meal would be at lunch that day, not at dinner. So I am eating quite a few calories the day before, but I have been burned by trying to eat out the night before and no more. Do what microwave potatoes.
That is super smart because sometimes you can think like, oh, I've researched this restaurant, I'm going to go to it. And like every other single runner or, there's other things in town, the restaurant's already booked or you can't, get seated till later. Or like you said, there, could be like food poisoning or any number of things. So it is safest to have your own food. There have been times that we have stopped at a grocery store, especially if your hotel room has a little mini fridge or something, and just go and get those familiar foods that are going to be comforting to you. And, especially for the race morning breakfast too. I like to bring along like packets of oatmeal, like the quick oats, and you can just microwave those. And, stir in if you want some protein source like almond butter or something, or, just go with something super simple like oats. And that kind of usually can land well for most people, but it should be something that you've practiced with, I guess is what we're trying to say. Yeah. Don't do the Trevor Spencer method. He, typically he's more about the travel and, the race is great and he wants to experience it, but he'll go out and have like ribs the night before.
What?
I've never heard it called a method.